So, let's first turn our thoughts to securing our personal computers. The computer operating system market is dominated by Microsoft Windows, with 78% market share. Apple comes in at 14%, and Linux at around 2%. Which operating system is most private? Linux. With the introduction of Windows 10, Microsoft took the strategic decision to basically make Windows a hybrid desktop and cloud system, with data flowing between your laptop and Microsoft servers at many levels. Microsoft has also chosen to allocate an advertising ID to each Windows 10 installation, serving adverts into your applications. By default, Windows also uploads everything you type to Microsoft. And even if you take the considerable time and effort to implement every privacy setting you can, updates are liable to change your settings. Most viruses and malware in the world also target Windows users. In short, Windows is a privacy nightmare. Apple OS is a considerable improvement on Windows 10, not least because it's relatively untouched by viruses and malware. Apple also gets privacy points for staying away from the advertising business. However, Apple loses points by having an increased focus on cloud uploads and by linking together its devices. Apple is also not free and open source software, so like Windows, we must trust they have our best intentions towards our privacy. Linux has all the benefits of free and open source software and is not linked to advertising or the cloud. For newcomers, I recommend downloading Ubuntu Desktop, which is an easy-to-use Linux operating system. If you're new to Linux operating systems, an easy way to get comfortable with Ubuntu is to watch an Introduction to Ubuntu video on YouTube. You can then download and start Ubuntu from a USB stick in your laptop to have a look around. And when you're ready, click on Install and select the option to run alongside Windows. This keeps Windows and all your files and settings on your machine, but also adds Ubuntu, creating what's called a dual boot machine. Every time you then start or restart your computer, you'll have an option screen to either select to run Ubuntu or select to run Windows. This is a great way to switch to Ubuntu while keeping the security of the Windows operating system you're familiar with. And over time, you'll need to use Windows less and less. Ubuntu uses way less system resources than Windows and is great to install on an old laptop to make them run like new. If you have a Mac, dual boot is not the best way to first experience Ubuntu. Another way of installing Ubuntu is to first install a virtual machine software program, such as VirtualBox. VirtualBox then enables you to install and run any operating system within it. Virtual machines make switching between operating systems quicker than dual booting, and are the easier way for Mac users to install Ubuntu rather than dual booting. In the screenshot, on the left, you can see Ubuntu running as the guest operating system on a Windows host operating system. Your privacy is best served, however, by making the switch and running a Windows guest operating system inside your Ubuntu host operating system. Linux operating systems come in many flavors, or distributions as they are called. Unix is a version of Linux that is very privacy focused because it runs all internet access over the encrypted Tor network, which we'll cover later. And it separates your network connection from the operating system, so that if your web browser is ever compromised, your real IP address is not discoverable. Unix is probably not for day-to-day use for most people, but once you're comfortable with Ubuntu and VirtualBox, Unix as a virtual machine will give you optimal privacy. Another Linux distribution you should be aware of for privacy and anonymity is Tails. Tails runs on a USB stick, so never saves anything on your laptop hard drive. When you disconnect the USB stick or shut down your laptop, all history, downloads and settings are also erased from the USB. Tails is an acronym for the Amnesiac Incognito Live System because it forgets everything and leaves no trace. Ideal for freedom fighters in oppressive regimes who may be subject to forensic analysis of their laptop hard drives. As we've seen, with a virtual machine, you can run a guest operating system on top of your host operating system. The Qubes operating system takes this concept to the next level by running each of your applications inside its own separate operating system. If you're an above-average Linux user with plenty of RAM on your machine, Qubes is the ultimate way to isolate and compartmentalize for security and privacy. Choosing the right laptop has privacy implications. The leading laptop for hardware and software privacy is probably the Librem range from Purism. Librem laptops are designed for privacy, with open source hardware components, hard switches for turning off the webcam and microphone, open source firmware, and the open source Linux operating system Pure OS. As we've seen, you can install a Linux operating system like Ubuntu on your laptop to significantly improve your privacy and security. Or you can use a MacBook, perhaps also running a Unix in a virtual machine for when privacy is needed. I agree with the FBI and Mark Zuckerberg that covering up your laptop webcam with a privacy slider is a good idea, especially for Windows users who are most likely to get hacked. And you should turn on hard drive encryption, ideally when first installing an operating system. This prevents your data being accessible if you lose your laptop, as long as it was completely turned off when you lost it. Indeed, I'd recommend reinstalling your operating system perhaps once a year to minimize security and privacy risks that may have got through your defenses. This is easy to do with a Linux operating system. Another laptop security tip is to use canary tokens. These create files that are attractive to hackers, like mypassword.doc. And if the file is ever opened, you get alerted by email.